Hello everybody, I'm doing this quick video, might be a bit lengthy, but I think it's going to be worth it on the topic of building native application or hybrid application using TD Mobile. I gave actually 3 presentation in the DEFCON, and those presentation can, as well as the sample, can be found on the knowledge base of OpenText for the Gupta product. If you search Deep Dive 1, I really recommend you to read this PDF, this presentation that I did. It will give you insight what's the requirement for both Android, Windows and iOS. So this video is really about building a multi-platform TD mobile application, hybrid application. Just to give you an insight of what's going to be required, here's Android. Okay, for Android, the setup is the following. You need to install Git, and you need to install the Java SDK. I give all the link there. I'm not going to talk much about that because it's there on the presentation and the PDF you can download. Once you install Git and SDK, Java SDK, you also have to install the Android SDK, Node.js, which is used by Cordova for scripting, and I give all the comment how to install all this. So all this is very clear and should be very clear and should be very easy. It's just a setup process. Here I did a snapshot showing to you this is Android Studio. It's important to know that with Cordova you can build using the command line, but you can also open a project, Android Studio project, that has been generated by the Cordova toolchain. So you know, this is for Android, and you will see that for all the other platform, as far as Cordova is related, it's going to be the same. So if I go for visuals for Microsoft, if you want to build on Windows 8 phone or Windows 10, actually it'd be better on Windows 10, you have to install Git, the same as Android, install Node.js, and then what's going to be important for Windows is going to be to install Visual Studio 2015. You can download the community edition, which has everything to actually build Cordova projects. For iOS, same things. You need to install Git, Node.js, and of course you're gonna have to install Xcode, which is the development tool from the Mac. So you need all this to be set up. So once we have all that, install Cordova and the compilation toolchain of the different platform, at this point you should be able to start being able to do hybrid application. There was an interesting issue reported by a customer that mentioned, hey, you know, if I'm taking the geolocation sample that we provide, that is supposed to be run, you know, as a web application, therefore not as a hybrid application or native application on the device, you will see that actually the coordinates of your location are not returned. But the point is, why you know, necessarily try to use, you know, a functionality of TDM, which is in principle at the beginning meant to run as a web application. If you intend, you know, to build hybrid and native application using Cordova, you have to be aware that the purpose of it is not just to make a simple, you know, an application, a TDM application that you would make look like a native application, but it's also to be able to interact with the device. Indeed, there are many resources on the device that HTML5 does not address. So there are many standards for HTML5 with HTML5 and with a web application does with TDM, therefore not native. What you can do is, for example, take picture, take video. There are different hardware specific features that you can use, but not all of them. Let's imagine that you need to use a Bluetooth printer. You don't have that. GPS somehow doesn't work if you make the geolocation sample application an hybrid application, and I will demonstrate that with TDM 2.1. Therefore, using a native application, if you use Cordova to build native application, you have to be aware that there are bazillions of plugin out there that you can use to interact with the device, and surely GPS plugin is so classical that this is available and that you can find that easy. So let's have a look on how to build TD Mobile hybrid application that would actually query the location, this both on Android, Windows and Apple. So here I have the TD Mobile 2.1 version. The version 2.1 will be released very soon. And here I have the geolocation standard sample that we deliver with the product. Notice that in the settings the Cordova build is not enabled, and therefore I'm going to just test if everything is fine running the application in web mode. Okay, now it's compiled, and let's just check. So here I have the notification which asks me if I need to allow location. The location, longitude and latitude are shown fine. At this point I can find the place where I'm living. So this is all working fine. Let me close all this. Let me stop, and now let's say that I want to build this application not as a web application but as a true device application, therefore a native and hybrid application. So I'm going to go in the build settings, and here, because I'm using Windows 10 and because Windows 10 has what we call a universal application, I can enable a Cordova build and actually see if I can actually build a true Windows 10 universal application. So I select Windows 10 over here, and the path of a folder. This folder is actually here and is currently empty. So now if I close this folder and I press OK, then go in Project, Compile, what you can see is that the team developer, actually the version 2.1, this is not a feature in 2.0, will automatically create the Windows project for you. So if now I open the Cordova test, you can see over here that it created different folders, and then in platform you can see the Windows platform. So far so good. Now that I compile the project, and the project has been created, and TD Mobile has in between quote injected the pages in the directory. Actually the pages, let me show you that, should be there. If I go there, you can see that page1.html was injected in the Cordova project. So therefore at this point I need to actually build the native application. TDM 2.1 for the moment does not provide the ability to build automatically the project. Therefore you're gonna have to use a command line. So I already prepared the things here, and for Windows 10 this is all explained on Cordova. Again, Cordova is third-party software. TDM only puts file where it is needed for Cordova application to work with TDM. It's the interaction. There is a lot of information on the PDF I mentioned previously about these topics, but as soon as you are on the level of building, debugging, all this has nothing to do anymore with TDM. So therefore you're gonna have to of course read about Cordova, how to run a project either on the emulator or physical device and so on. Anyway, here this is the command I'm using to actually see if the application is running. So let me press enter. It's going to start the build on my Windows 10 machine and create actually a Windows 10 application. This Windows 10 application or the TDM application is to get the location using GPS. Here you can see, unfortunately, I don't have the latitude and the longitude being returned to me. If I go and show location on the map, I'm going to have the pointer. Therefore, the bind variable that we provide in TDM geolocation doesn't work with hybrid application. But again, the point of having hybrid application, beyond the fact that you only want to use TDM, data fields, UI of TDM and operation, that's fine. But what I try to say here is that if you start to look into hybrid application, native application using Cordova, you most definitely gonna look at into plugins, and there is a lot of plugins available out there. And so the idea is, okay, the bind variable for geolocation doesn't work, therefore let's give it a try with the plugin from Cordova. So let's have a look at that. So here's the link, the URL of this Cordova plugin Geolocation. I can tell you from experience that the plugin are generally very well done, the one referenced by Cordova, and all the coding, how to actually call the methods, or to call the functions, the JavaScript functions, to get data from a plugin, is in general very well explained and extremely simple. So simple that's basically more or less a copy and paste of the code that you see over there. So let's have a look now using TD 2.0, because this is what customers are actually using currently, although the version 2.1, as I mentioned, will soon be out. So let's have a look at that. So here is the sample, or the geolocation, that I will try to actually build using hybrid application using the plugin Geolocation from Cordova. Because I'm going to use the version 2.0, and the version 2.0 doesn't have the feature to create automatically project, we used to do a batch file in order to do all the tasks. And actually I created this batch file that should ease actually the process. Very quick information about this batch file. Over here I'm checking if a directory, actually the geolog directory, which is the Cordova project, exists or not. In this case it doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, then what I want to do is, in this directory, therefore the Cordova project, I want to add 3 different platforms inside this Cordova project: an Android, Windows, specifically to the version 4.3.0. This is the Cordova version. There is different version that you can use. Anyway, this is also explained on the Cordova side, and the same for iOS 4.2.1. At this point I need also to add the plugin. This will actually fetch using Git. This is why you had to download Git, the plugin Cordova plugin Geolocation. So those are the comments. When this is done, at this point it's a simple matter to open the TD mobile application. This is an example that I did, geolog.apx. I will discuss about this later on, and just to compile. And once this is done, press any key, I start to build the application, both for Windows and then for Android. So let's have a look how this batch file is working. So now let me start geolog.bat, which actually is going to start to creating a new Cordova project, which it does now. Then add Android, then add Windows, of course this is a one-time process. Once this is done, it's relatively fast. Then it installs the plugin for Windows. Still not the geolocation, this will come. Now it installs the geolocation. Now it creates the iOS project. And actually now he installs the plugin, the geolocation plugin, which works for both Windows 10, iOS and Android. So let's just have a look what has been created over there. So in the platform you can see that my geolog Cordova project contains the 3 major platforms. There are many other platforms existing out there that you can also target if you really want. So now let's focus on the TD mobile application, because this is what I have to compile now, alright, and the sample that I quickly did using TDM 2.0, because this is what people are using currently. Again, 2.1 should come out very soon. So here's my sample written in TDM 2.0. It's very simple. You have get location, which is a push button that's gonna invoke a JavaScript function that actually calls the plugin to return the latitude, longitude, accuracy, and timestamps of the GPS location at the time it was requested. So if I click on get location, on click, you can see that I will call a JavaScript function get location. There's no parameter needed. Now let's have a look at the JavaScript function, and let's edit it. Document add event listener device ready. On device ready is the function that's going to be called if the device is ready. This is typically what you would always do when you interact with Cordova plugin. At this point over here, navigator geolocation get current position is the request of the location using the plugin. If we do have a success, all those variables over here, position, latitude, longitude, altitude, accuracy, should get a value being returned. Here initially on the Cordova plugin, as you could see, it's more or less a copy and paste that I do, a plagiat basically. I did a typo over here. So it's as simple as that. The only little things I want to interact with TDM is actually to get the binding latitude, longitude, accuracy and timestamps, so that I can set the value from the data returned by the plugin. So obviously I have those bind variable also defined on the page. Just let's have a look very quickly about that. If I go there and in bind variable bindings, I can see lat, lng, ACC and TSP. And of course in phone layout, if I go in longitude, I can see over here that I set the bind variable to latitude, longitude, accuracy, and so on. Okay, so at this point it's a matter to build actually the application and to enable the Cordova build, which I did there. And as you can see, compared to the version 2.1, there is no Android or there is no platform definition over here. So that doesn't matter because it's common to the three platforms. The only things that matters is to make sure that you provide the proper Cordova project directory, which I believe is set correctly now. Now let me try to build this little sample application. Now it says that the compile is complete successfully. Now I'm going to minimize that and I'm going to continue on my batch file. The batch file at this point just builds for the different platform. In this case I'm going to build for Windows 10 and for Android. I'm going to build for iOS because obviously you cannot build on Windows 10 machine iOS code. We'll see that later on. So I'm going to press any key. I hope everything is going to be fine. Sometimes, you know, with video there can be issue. Okay, so what happened actually here is I'm forking two processes, one to build Windows 10 and one to build Android. So let's see what happens. Hopefully everything's fine. So now we can see in parallel two build, one for Android and one for Windows. Actually Windows is much faster, well, but not you know, if you do modification then the Android is going to be much faster. Actually it's written even there. What you can see is that I'm just waiting it to finish. I hope it's going to be alright to prove my point. So I'm waiting it to be finished. Okay, it's going to install the application now. And let's also have a look at my Android device. Android device is actually hooked, you know, currently via VNC. So now have a look. It was very easy. Now what I have is a very nice Windows 10, well, very nice, it's up to you to decide that, Windows 10 application, universal application. Now if I click get location, I do have the latitude, longitude, return. Actually, the timestamp is not returned. On the same times, on Android, as you can see, the running process functioned. This is truly my device showing on via VNC. Now, if I do get location, now I have the information being returned. I thought the timestamp would be returned, but obviously it wasn't returned. There is an important note here. I wouldn't have the time to discuss about that in the video, but if you're targeting TDM application to make hybrid application or native application, of course debugging is very important. I'm probably going to make a video about debugging on those different platforms. What you have to know is that Chrome has the inspect feature. That means that if you have your phone connected to the computer, to Windows for example, at this point you are able to in a way remote debug the application. So you can set breakpoint in TDM, JavaScript functions that you're calling, you can evaluate variable and so on, and this of course is invaluable. Same for Visual Studio 2015, which actually is great because directly in Visual Studio 2015 you are able to debug JavaScript code. So this is just a great feature. As for iOS, they do pretty much like Chrome. Safari has built-in functionality to debug this kind of application. But again, I'm not going to focus on that topic for the moment, maybe in another video. So now, the next step, now that we saw that it was that easy to make an hybrid application, to circumvent the problem that the geolocation bind variable, the native from TDM didn't work, I therefore use hybrid application because that's what I wanted to use anyway first place, and the topic of the video was to show you how to do it. You can see that it's actually very easy to start to exploit all those lovely plugins available out there. Needless to say that this is very powerful. Again, there is no limitation of what you can do now with TDM on a mobile device. Those are still not true mobile, well, they are true mobile applications. They are using WebView inside the native application running on the device. All the rest of course is jQuery mobile running inside this WebView, but the advantage again is that you have full access of the resources, hardware resources of the device using plugin. That's really the point of building native hybrid application with TDM. Of course, you're not obliged to use plugin if you don't want. That's fair enough. But then, as you can see, the geolocation native feature of TDM that works for web application doesn't work in the context of hybrid application. So again, this is just to explain all that. Next step is to show you the same on iOS. Let's have a look on that. A little mention though on iOS, I do not have a physical device, and shall see how this is going to work. Okay, so here's my Macintosh. I'm using OS X 10.11 El Capitan, and of course, as I mentioned, I install all what is needed: Git, Cordova, tools chain, and of course Xcode. So you can do that, it's absolutely no issue, it's easy, and so on. Also, I do have a share on my Windows PC where actually this is my desktop, the desktop that I showed you previously, and over here this is the geolocation Cordova project. Alright, and Geolog, this is where actually I can see the different platforms that got created. So I got Android, Windows, and iOS. We're going to focus on this one. So let me go just one level up. So this is the root of the Cordova project. And what I'm going to do is open a terminal session and just drag and drop. Let me still go one level up. Geolog here. So let me first type cd and Geolog. So basically I go now on my Windows PC share map where the Cordova project is, and the simple matter is then to do Cordova run iOS. Let's see what happens. So here basically I want to compile and run under iOS simulator. Note that I don't have a physical device, therefore shall see what's going to happen. Simulator, especially on Macintosh, is really not, you know, an emulator. Basically there's a lot of functionality not existing in the simulator. So all in all, if you want to target for Apple, for sure you're gonna have to use a physical device. So here's doing his stuff, he's building. Build is successful. Automatically it takes I think the most recent iOS version, run it in the simulator. So this is the simulator, it's just going to initialize, as you can see. And let's wait the application starts to run. Okay, it started. Okay, now let's get to the application and let's click get location. Okay, it's because I already run the application before doing the video. Like the other device, it would request for authorization to get your location, but now I do have a KCL error domain error 0, and basically well, it's because the simulator doesn't support it. I'll show you that on the web page. So basically here I found on the internet possible cause of KCL error domain error 0 because the system cannot accurate location. That's one of the possibility. Anyway, my point was to show you that I can build hybrid application and what's the requirement on iOS, and so there is no problem actually running the TDM application. It's just that the plugin that I'm using and the simulator would not return me a fix, the location where I am. So all in all, again, it's, as you can see, the difficulty is just to get your tools and the hardware that you need to target the platform. That's the only things really you have to do. The next step, you have TDM, anyway that's for granted. If you have it, you have it. And the next step is to understand Cordova. Therefore, for the targeted platform that you wish to use, always read the documentation, the plugin that you like to use, and of course you need to be a bit familiar with JavaScript. Not that much, but a bit, of course, it's always welcome, and that's about it. As for debugging, this really would be another topic. Again, if you are doing TDM, hybrid application, debugging really is going to be required. It's easy to make mistake, you know, in the JavaScript input of TDM, and you know, if you are not able to debug, you're not going to be able to see what's going on. It's going to be a total black box. Anyway, hope this video gives a good insight on how to build on multiple platforms. Again, the PDF that is on the knowledge base of OpenText provides all the information plus samples. All those batch files are there. So if you're interested about the topic, definitely you should have a look at them. And hope this clarify a bit all the topics. Thank you very much.